Hey, welcome back. We're in John chapter 20. We just have today and tomorrow's chapters left, and we are dealing with the resurrection today. I wanted to remind us something concerning resurrection accounts. When you read the resurrection accounts in the Gospels, you're going to notice some variances in the details that are recorded, the variances, the details that are left out. There are going to be different people mentioned at the tomb, different, sometimes it almost seems like the sequence of events is different. But those variances did not mean that we do not trust the accounts of the gospel. That variance in some of these details does not mean that they are contradicting one another, because they do not. It's just a matter of sometimes there are elements that are left out, there are elements that are put in because of the emphasis of the writer. And this is an important thing to note. John has an emphasis. Matthew, Mark, Luke, those synoptic gospels have an emphasis too. And so I'd encourage you, if you want to try it sometime, writing in a harmony of the gospels, trying to figure out the order, of the resurrection, trying to figure out an order of those things. When you get done, your friend will be like, yeah, I don't know. Some of this I don't quite understand. And that's okay. And it's perfectly okay. The importance is understanding what is it that we're supposed to take from this. And some of that should be obvious. It's the resurrection. It's the resurrection. Well, hey, at the tomb, here in John chapter 20, Mary Magdalene discovers an empty tomb, and then she reports it to the disciples. When she reports it to them, Peter and the other disciple, the disciple whom Jesus loved, this is John, they run to the tomb. And it says that they run to the tomb, they notice this cloth folded up, and it says John believed. John believed. And to what extent, I don't know, but it seems like he believed that Jesus was alive. He believed that he's alive. What that meant, how he understood the fullness of that, I don't, obviously he didn't understand the fullness, because it tells us that they did not yet understand from the scriptures of the Old Testament that Jesus was going to rise from the dead. They didn't quite understand it. And I get it. Jesus often spoke in parables. He spoke in terms of using a material world and tangible things, but he was giving a spiritual meaning. So I'm guessing part of them, the confusion of the resurrection, is they probably had a similar interpretation and understanding when he would talk about himself dying, but yet coming back. It was confusing to them. Also, they hadn't encountered too many people doing that. Yes, Jesus rose Lazarus, but for yourself, that's just, wow, that's wild. Well, once Peter and John, they see this, they go, but Mary Magdalene lingers. She lingers near the tomb. She wants to find the body of Jesus. She just wants to honor her Lord. She wants to honor him. And she sees a man. She thinks it's a gardener. She has an interaction with him and just saying, do you know where they put him? Do you know where they put my master? All the while she's talking to Jesus. And then she realizes it's Jesus. And can you imagine the joy? I don't think we can. I don't think we can fathom the joy and the excitement that she experiences at that moment. And she has to go back and tell the disciples what has just happened. Well, we go back and it says we meet the disciples and they're in a secured room. They're alarmed of what's just happened to Jesus, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. So they're kind of laying low. But they're in this room, and Jesus comes and he says, peace be with you. And then something happens. It's very interesting. It says he breathes on them and says, receive the Holy Spirit. This, if we're honest enough, can be a bit confusing, because it is in Acts, according to Acts chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, the baptism of the Holy Spirit has not yet happened, not even in this moment when he says receive the Spirit. And so what is happening here? And I'll be honest, I'm still a little bit confused, but this is what I do understand. It seems this is a bit of a foretaste of the Spirit, a foretaste of the baptism of the Spirit. Understand that the Spirit has already been at work in the lives of the disciples. When Jesus sent them out, he sent out the 12, or he sent out another account of the 70, and he sends them out in groups of 2. What do? Well, they go out and they teach, and it also says that they are able to cast out demons and heal the sick. Well, that's a work of the Spirit working through them. But it has not yet been the baptism of the Holy Spirit, where the Holy Spirit would reside in them, fully dwell within them forever, and to empower them forever. Here, as Jesus breathes on them and he says, receive the Holy Spirit, again, Over and over, I feel like the book of John takes us back to the garden. I believe this takes us back to the garden once again, because once God had formed Adam, what does he do? He breathes the breath of life into them. And so here, I believe this is a foretaste. Kind of think of it this way. If you go to someone's house and you walk in and you open the door and you can smell something cooking, and it's either your favorite dish or it's a dessert, you can almost taste it. You can taste it in your mouth, but yet you haven't taken a bite out of it. Your mouth is watering and you can't wait for it because you have got a flavor of it. You've experienced a little bit of it and you can't wait for the full thing, to have that on your plate set before you and to take it into yourself. I think this is a similar thing of what they're experiencing here with this moment with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit. Now, we find out here that one of the 11, they're called the 11 now, of course, because the Judas Iscariot has betrayed Jesus, and so he's not included he's been cut off, and it's the 12. And so the 11 here, Thomas, one of them, is not there. And he says, I will never believe. They tell him, Jesus has just appeared to us. And he says, I will never believe. I must see the nail prints and the side piercing. I must place my hand in it. And then Jesus appears to him. And we get this is the statement that Thomas is known for. My Lord and my God. My Lord and my God. And he is proclaiming a high view of Jesus right here. Jesus then says something that I take great encouragement in. He says, blessed are those who believe but have not seen the risen Lord. Tomorrow, we're in John chapter 21 as we wrap up our study of the Gospel of John. See you then.